Welcome into another episode of Live Good, Die Nasty. We've got waiver picks, and this week we're going to name it correctly. So this is waiver, week 6 waiver wire picks for you coming in on Monday. So we've got a few different ones to cover. My name is Arlen. This is Nate. How are we feeling, Nate? And more importantly, how are we feeling about the most epic trade in Dynasty?
It was pretty insane to see, and it's funny how you always have to keep my name in your mouth even when you're not trading with me. So trading for my draft picks for future years. But congratulations to you, man. You're back in the draft game. You have a draft pick in the next 3 years. That's amazing.
We have 5 rounds, and most leagues have 3? We have 5 rounds, 3 years of picks that everyone should have, and I have 0 picks until yesterday, where this is one of those, they were throwing things out, people reply, and they said the only person I'm interested in that trade is McNichols. I was like, okay, well, I'll trade him for a second, and they're like, there's no way. I'm like, good call, I'll do a third. so now I got the back of the third for McNichols, who, what a stud.
Now, you said you would take a third, but it was required to be whose third now?
It had to be your third so that I could own your pick, even though, I mean, I wanted something near the top of the third. So
yeah,
that might just be it, except for this week where, as we mentioned on the last episode, I had a 30-point projected win. Obviously, projections, yada. But that doesn't look like it's happening.
Yeah, so going into, I've got a very, very broken team, and we'll show you what's going on maybe and see what our rosters look like. But somehow I've gone from 30-point projection to possibly winning tonight by 8 points. Unless Olave and Rashid Shaheed combine for 33 points between the two of them, which is very possible, or Rashid Shaheed will get 3 points. You never know.
All right. Well, we'll talk about those. And there's somebody on your team that is actually part of one of your highly rostered, but check if they're there, that ended up contributing to that slap in the face that you gave me. But I did want to take a pause here and just say thank you to all those who have already subscribed or left us rating if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts. We're on all of those ones. But we're also on YouTube if you prefer that video format. And so ratings really help with our podcasts. And then for YouTube, subscribing and leaving comments help us out a lot. But also the comments piece we just really love. And if we can get to 100 subscribers, our very modest goal, by the end of October, Nate and I will both shave our beards.
Done.
I'm throwing that one out there. You're going to see what this is hiding. 100 subscribers by the end of November, and I'll do it.
There you go.
But honestly, it just keeps us motivated coming back. We appreciate all y'all.
I think the right answer to that would actually be have you shave your beard, and then for me to show you all what it would look like if I tried to grow my facial hair out.
Done. Booked. All right, so here's the deal. By the end of October, by the 1st of November, if we have 100 subscribers, I will shave my beard, and Nate will participate in No Shave November, and for all of November, he will not shave his beard. Is that the commitment?
That's going to be rough. Yeah,
it's locked in.
Not even going to ask my wife, but let's do it.
Yes. I'm so curious. I love it. Oh, that made me so happy. All right. So one of the people that you beat up my team with, who is your highly rostered, but check if he's on the waiver wire, because it's a great cover for some bye weeks. Who is that?
Yeah, so if we're taking a look at waiver wire week 6 here, if he's still out there, you might be a week late on this, but if Trey Sermon is still out there, Jonathan Taylor is looking like he's going to be out for at least a week or two more with a mid to high ankle sprain that he's dealing with. Trey Sermon was pretty effective, catching 6 of 6 passes from Joe Flacco yesterday. He got you He wasn't amazing, but he got you points, double-digit points from a running back, and RB2 that's a fill-in is going to be something that's helpful, especially as you're going into bye weeks of the next couple weeks. So something that you should be looking for.
Yeah, it's this time, it's week 1 and week 2 and 3 maybe where you have like this elitist outlook at your team and at players on the waiver wire. I don't need that player. And it's about now where it gets a little ugly and you're like, look, we just need some nasty boys to fill in some rosters, and just it's not pretty. One of my leagues that I happen to win in, and I was so shocked because I was starting the likes of Roschon Johnson and like I think I had Roschon Johnson, Alan Lazard, Tutu Atwell was in there. Like it was a dirty lineup, and I was in trouble. And sometimes you got to look for those guys. It's the equivalent in Dynasty, I feel, is when you need to just roster some older guys that are not like some Mosterts or whatever to get by, and not all be fully focused on that youth and like superstar possibility. And you just got to get the down and dirty guys sometimes. I like that one. Mine is highly rostered as well. 65%. And I believe this is for both of mine because I'm going to shout out two. Both 65%. Mooney. Holy Mooney. Yeah. What a great week. But in general, he's just been, it's already been trending that way. And it kind of locked in as like, that's an every week flex or starter or something, just somebody at least with some high upside that you can throw into your lineup. And it's apparent that he is part of the plan when he hasn't gone under 95%, except for once when it was 93% snap percentage and 16 targets in 1 week. That's a lot. That's an outlier, I'm sure, but you had 6, 8, 7 before that, and that's perfect. So Mooney is somebody that I would pick up. And then with Kraft, similar piece, it was like trending this way of being highly involved, over 80% usage, and then the targets the last couple of weeks have really been there. The 2 touchdowns is a lot, especially that huge one where he trucks somebody and goes through. But I think the intent is there from the team to use him as a main focal point.
I like it. I've liked Mooney and then how he plays the game. Just a speedster out there to go up and catch balls. But he's impressive, especially in an offense where, like you said, he got a ton of receptions when no one was missing from the receiving core. It was just one of those games where he got a lot of touches. Right, it wasn't filling in for anyone. He's got a role in that offense for sure. And that kind of leads into who my QB pick would be for your waiver week 6. Your waiver week 6 pickups. If he's out there 35% rostered right now, I mean, you like that, dude. Kirk Cousins is out there and available. Dude threw for over 500 yards against Tampa Bay. Maybe finding himself in his passing offense here, giving wonderful, beautiful fantasy nights to the likes of Mooney, to Drake London, and finally a sighting of Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts had a great night. I think he got 17 points on Thursday's game. So Kirk Cousins is out there doing it. He's got Carolina this week, not scaring you from in that regard at all. Maybe it's a shootout between Kirk Cousins and Andy Dalton, which, we thought we'd be talking about that anytime this year. So I think that's a good shot for your pickup this week.
100%. And this is another one where it's trending in the right direction. Every week he's scored the same, or he's attempted the same or more passes for 5 straight weeks. And a big piece of it is in that first game, he's not moving at all. Then he's a little bit more mobile, and not a scramble mobile, but being able to move effectively within the pocket. And that was like everyone was excited about him being there. He's a solid fantasy quarterback, solid quarterback in real life. The movement wasn't there, and that was hindering him, and then the weapons around him. And we've seen progressively every week him feel a little bit more comfortable moving on that foot. And I think, I think more of the same of the last couple of weeks versus like that low under 30 attempts, I think is not going to be as common.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get over 58 attempts, but yeah, for sure.
Don't think it's going to continue that trend, but yeah.
What about
it's
you?
exciting for the weapons, though. The weapons themselves there, it's really exciting for. This one, though, mine is not exciting. My QB waiver wire week pick, I wanted to get somebody a little less rostered, at 16% rostered. Oh, 16% rostered. We've got, I don't want to say it out
I just
loud.
want to hear you say it. I just want to hear you say the name.
Look, Daniel Jones is, I'll spit it out. Daniel Jones. So the biggest thing I saw was the fact that he was still able to be fantasy relevant without neighbors in there. That was a huge tell. Uh, and he's going to disappoint you many times throughout the year, but he is a great streaming quarterback if with the right matchup with which he's got Cincinnati and they've been pretty effective for the opposing quarterback. And you see Lamar kind of handle them last week, and Daniel Jones is no Lamar, but he does have like mobility. He's desperate right now. That's what I saw watching that game. I watched a little bit more of that game than some of the others, and it looked like Daniel Jones was a little bit more desperate and he will pick it up and risk his body because he's fighting for a job right now. And I feel like when he's at that cornered back against the wall, then you can get some games like that out of him.
I mean, you had a week where he did go for 11 attempts, 38 yards rushing, so he was trying to get his feet into the game. Multiple touchdowns, and it's his highest scoring affair of the year. And like to your point, without Malik Neighbors there, so he's finding ways to get the ball out and into the hands of some real playmakers. Big surprise, surprise sighting of Darius Slayton out there, but but it was
It's also free.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who you got at wide receiver?
All right, so wide receiver is a little tougher, and we're getting into that time of the season where we're getting into bye weeks. Because of how deep we talked about wide receiver being, a lot more benches are filled with all of the available talent that's out there. So digging a little bit deeper, because of an injured player, a role has opened up for Jalen Tolbert out in Dallas. So I think that he had himself not an amazing blow your mind game, but he's got himself opportunity that he's taken advantage of. He's got 10 receptions. He's there for almost 10 targets, 7 receptions against Pittsburgh in what was a noticeably ugly game. So more opportunities to come for sure. Is out there for 90% at snap, and Brandon Cooks is going to be out for a little while. So he is someone that you can consider in your flex play position. If he's out there for you for wide receivers, hopefully you're set. But with bye weeks here, he could be a bye week fill in for flex.
Yeah, he definitely flexed up, but he's been available snap percentage wise. He's been in the majority, over 70% in almost every game. 67 was the one that he was in. That was week 1. So he's gotten multiple games with a decent amount of targets. He's gotten many games with a high snap percentage. So he's there, and he has that opportunity, like you were saying. Plus, I like the continuation of that trend of at this point of the season, I don't have much fab left. I usually spend it within the first few weeks because that's the higher percentage. But this is one of those great players that if you need a fill in, it's one of those you add in 10 waiver claims at $0 and you end up with Jalen Tolbert and Daniel Jones. This one might cost a little bit more. I haven't heard what the buzz is yet, but 35% rostered. Jordan Whittington, that's 2 weeks in a row with a high target number, and he's got that opportunity as long as you've got Cup and why
Puka.
Oh my God, he's been gone the whole season. I haven't even Puka, but as long as you have those two out, which even when one comes back, he might have earned the right to continue having a higher than expected target. He is in a bye week next week, so you have to look at if is Cup expected to be back on the week after. I'm not quite sure. I would assume so.
Yeah.
But that might allow this Jordan Whittington character who had a lot of targets, who had success, you might be able to get him cheaper because it's a bye week. If you can stand that, and this next week, week 6, is not your bye week, Kel, then you can pick him up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he, for most of the game, wasn't super duper involved, but then when it mattered in the end of the game, they were relying on him target after target after target towards the end of the game with 7 receptions, 90 yards, almost 100 yards. There, and his points have increased, everything's increased, trended up, going into that bye week, like you said. And even if Cup's back, I think Puka's a little while further out, so you've got a good shot at a role, and it's not like any of these other wide receivers have really sustained being significant. Some
And
sightings
this
of
follows
Tutu,
the trend from offseason of where they spoke about this. This is another hit that they believe that they have, and all throughout training camp. And then when he got his opportunity, he was successful in it. So I think it's an excellent like stash. Maybe it becomes just an every week flex option for you, even when one of them returns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they have to stay healthy,
Which
right? So
they
they've
you have
both kind of
great
been a little
history.
banged up.
Yeah, they've got a
Yeah.
great history of showing how healthy they can stay. For sure. All right, so jumping into our running back scenarios here for waiver wire week 6. I'm going to keep saying that because we messed that up last week. So waiver wire week 6, and if you think we skipped week 5, we didn't. We just mislabeled them. All right. So for running back, this one's kind of obvious, but I have to call him out because we on this podcast said something very opposite of this player in previous seasons and in the offseason this year. I think we didn't expect much coming out of Tank Bigsby coming into his second year. We even joked about him not being great at football coming into this year because of how much he didn't do in his rookie season. But it's showing more and more that he's growing into this game. Dude runs like a tank. He outsnapped Travis Etienne, not his brother Trevor, Travis Etienne this past weekend. Out attempted him, got more targets than he did. Now, of course, in coach speak, they talked to Doug Peterson after the game, and he said, Etienne's still our guy. Travis is still our guy, but that might just be coach speak. Tank has just looked like the better running back, much like we talked about Bucky Irving a couple weeks ago. How it plays out, maybe they still try to force it, but if Tank's got the hand, they are not going to be shy about including him. If he's out there, 31% roster, to go grab him.
As a ETN Dynasty owner, what is your panic level?
It's relatively high, right?
Yeah. Okay.
We were nervous about ETN. He started his career off with an injury. He earned that job and kept it, right? But Tank is I think he's a third round guy coming in. Now Etienne, of course, was first round guy, but still, best case scenario, if the trajectory continues, they're not going to deny this becoming a committee, I don't think. So, which hurts Etienne's stock from what I thought I had in a 3 down back for at least a few years. Which speaks to when we talk about Dynasty, which speaks to the volatility of the running back position and why you might be a genius in not really trusting that position and trying to trade out of it as much as possible when they peak after even one season.
Yeah, I like to move on from them pretty fast. If the value is there, most likely the value won't be the next year, unless you have a couple of those stars. But the Kyron, the Achans, I don't even want to say James Cook because I think he's more stable. He's just not that highest tier. But it's rare that you get the Barkley that's going to, or the Henry, or the McCaffrey that's going to maintain that value year after year. It has to be like a generational kind of player there to kind of keep that.
Right.
Otherwise, your chopped liver so fast, or at least it's roulette on if you will be or not. My running back, a lot less rostered, a lot less concerned because you don't have to invest much. But Roschon Johnson, this is kind of, Swift still has had his moments, right? But there was a lot of talk of how rough he was looking. And then in the last 2 weeks, Swift has done well, but Roschon Johnson is still effective, and they're still utilizing him. So in the last few weeks, he's only getting like 30%. It was interesting to 3 weeks ago, he had like 5 targets, 4 receptions, and I thought that was going to be more of his role. And last year, I think when he did have those moments, that was it. But then this last week week 4 and week 5 were the touchdowns that gave him that upside. But either way, even when Swift is heavily involved, they're still finding a way and considering him a weapon. And I think it's a little bit of a safety blanket for Caleb Williams, and to kind of give this extra little bit of the relief for Swift, and Swift can still catch it. And then you have Roschon that gets the extra little yards and giving him the confidence to keep moving that. I'm afraid to start Roschon Johnson, but I'm but I did this last week because I was desperate. And that's one of those players where it's probably not owned. A lot of people aren't like fighting for him. 31% rostered, and you can throw him in when you need to. And over the next 5 weeks, there's going to be plenty of times where I'm going to probably need to mixed injuries mixed with some bye weeks. It's just down and dirty.
Yeah, I mean, he's who they're trusting with short yardage touchdowns for sure. I secretly had been hoping that Khalil Herbert was going to be that guy.
Same.
But Roschon Johnson's just showing up as the guy, and as this offense is starting to click, right? We were nervous about Caleb Williams and what he was going to do with this offense, and he's finding out how he can work it. And if they're going to get down to the goal line, Roschon Johnson seems to be the one that gets the ball in his hands. So, safe bet can be a little scary because you're reliant on those touchdowns, but for sure, definitely an option.
I'm going to go with my next pick for tight end before yours, because I think yours is a great deep one that is also a good transition to Dynasty because he might be available there too. Colby Parkinson is mine at 39% owned. And again, these are redraft. We'll speak specifically to a couple picks for Dynasty as well. But Parkinson has had it's been kind of frustrating because I thought he was going to be more and more involved, but his snap percentage is there. He got paid the bag, and then he has had most weeks. He had one down week where it was 2 targets, but week 1 and 3 were 5. Last week was 7. Week 5 was 13, and that's the big jump that I was looking for. Of was he target that much? Did he haul in a lot of them? And how are they treating him in those moments? I think it was similar moments to Whittington, where it's like, who are the big guys that we can use right now to just get down the field a little bit and move when we need to. And it wasn't like a traditional garbage time where it's not repeatable. I think there's more lessons to be gained from how they used Whittington and Colby Parkinson for them than a traditional garbage time. Like garbage time, you're like, throw it out, just whatever. But I feel like they learned a little bit about both players, and
Yeah.
I'm interested to see when they get back from bye going into that. Maybe there's some lessons learned. They have a plan surrounding those two a little bit more, and then come in to week 7 with a more solidified plan. So it won't help you in week 6 since he's on a bye, but it's somebody that if you've been moving around from tight end to tight end, you either pick up now or you pick up if you have a spot throughout the week that you feel you can just throw someone on your bench and get ahead of next week when he probably will be picked up and cost you fab.
Yeah, for sure. And this is kind of the trend as we're looking at our tight ends. Apparently, I didn't even realize that we both picked tight ends that are going into a bye week.
It's probably not a good move.
But yeah, a valid pass catcher that they're trusting in the Rams offense totally makes sense because of all the folks that have been injured and been out of the game. So Colby Parkinson's earning a role and looking good there in his first year with the Rams. So definitely trust it there. Mine was a little bit deeper, like you said. It might even be great for our Dynasty piece as well. But Jonnu Smith, he's a veteran of this league and has shown great skill in being a great pass catching tight end while he's out there. And he's been in a place where Tyler Huntley has needed that sort of support. It's clear that they cannot get the ball down the field to their wonderful, awesome playmakers, and that sucks. And we can talk about that in a later episode. But at least for Jonnu Smith, that means he's got 8 targets and 5 receptions in his last game. If you need it going into bye weeks, and you can stash him for a week, or if you can get him and find him available in your Dynasty leagues, as the pickings are relatively slim. If you've got a tight end that's getting targets, that is a commodity in fantasy this year. For sure. That's where I put Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, 7% owned in redraft and 52% owned in Dynasty. So heavily available in both. And if you need probably a spot, it would be a spot start, most likely, like starting next week. I do want to bring up one more name, and this is probably doesn't help for today, but if I'm picking him up where I can today, just because Juwan Johnson, I brought him up last week's episode, so his game hasn't hit yet at the time of this recording, and in a couple leagues I need him to do a decent amount. But that's somebody that if you set up your leagues like I do, which I like the ability to drop players once they've been played if they're on the bench. And you can kind of drop some of those whatever names you took a chance on and pick up somebody like Juwan
John
Johnson. I don't know
Johnson.
why that block is there for me. Johnson is a tight end out of New Orleans. He's probably available for you. He ended the year really good last year, and then he's had a foot injury, and he's starting. It seems like they're starting to try to get him involved. So that'll be a bonus name I'll throw out there. For Dynasty, we've got. I'll continue on the tight end trend, and then you can kind of round us out. Brenton Strange, somebody that I've actually played this year, out of desperation, 53% owned in Dynasty. I played him in redraft. That's how bad some of my teams have gone this year. But Brenton Strange, he's out of Jacksonville, and he seems to be like one of those. I mean, I think with any of these players at this level, it's a little bit like you need him to most likely get a touchdown, or you're going to be in a bad spot with him. But it's one of those outlets that I think with Ingram out, he's been somebody that you can kind of throw in there and hope that you get some kind of action. I think I happen to play him on the week that he got a touchdown. In week 3, he got another one. This one, he's out there for a majority of the snaps. He's getting like 3-4 targets each, but you're just hoping that one of those goes for a touchdown. And at that level of someone who's 11% owned in redraft, and then in Dynasty 53%, like that's fine. A hope for a touchdown is fine with me.
Yeah, it's a dart throw with the tight end position, knowing he's going to get those touchdowns. And if you got an opportunity like that, he's shown he's going to do it. I'm with it for sure. For me, from a Dynasty perspective, someone that's kind of been around, floating around, and he's 27 years old. He's maybe still in the prime of his career as it can be as a wide receiver. But Ray McCloud, he's bounced around the league a little bit. But man, it's surprising that you dig into this. You watch him play, and he's just always there in the slot, finding the gaps in the coverage, finding ways to get the ball in his hand. And like we said, Kirk Cousins' passing game has been increasing week over week. So Ray McCloud's role is becoming more and more important. I think he's 11% in redraft and only 56% rostered in Dynasty right now. And we were just talking about this, but surprising when you take a look at his snap percentages, he's there for, except for the first game, is there over 95% of the time spent on the field. So he's available for those catches. And obviously with Kirk Cousins, he's making most pass catchers relevant to the detriment to his running backs, but whatever. Bijan.
He's the Alan Lazard of Atlanta. You've got the veteran quarterback that's come in and has a vibe with one wide receiver, even though you have a stud tight end there. You have a stud wide receiver. You have a stud running back, 2 of them. It's so similar to the situation in New York that it's like the Alan Lazard, Ray McCloud. Those are the players that are just not sexy to play. That can, if you just put that aside, swallow your pride in stardoms when you need to, you can get a good week out of it.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in later episodes because that Jets offense is something else right now. The Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard conundrum is frustrating as all heck. But yeah, I think that does it for our waiver week 6 picks. Actually, I did have one more that if you can, we talked about, you brought up a minute ago, if you can hold out a week and if you've got the roster spot for it, we did this a few times, but Aaron Jones had a hip injury yesterday. Don't know the full extent of it. They're going into a bye week, but if Ty Chandler is out there and available, I think he's available in over 40% of the leagues right now, or only taken in 40% of the leagues right now. So Ty Chandler might be a great pickup if you can stash him. He is going to be the clear guy if Aaron Jones is out in week 7. So go get him if he's out there.
Another one was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you want to, he's not going to be playing, I don't think, tonight. But just stash and see. And if Hunt doesn't look electric, then you're just getting ahead of the waiver wire for this week 6 that we're talking about. But if you're able to get this on Monday before the game starts, if I'm able to post it, then that's somebody that you should grab. But in general, just look at those players. We mentioned his name last week too, of just somebody that you try to get ahead. I think the last 2 weeks maybe we've even mentioned, if you just try to get ahead of some of these that so you don't have to spend it. That's the way that you get around with spending all of your fab early. You get those higher percentage breakout players early, and then you just have to, the sacrifices, you have to go a week or 2 ahead sometimes.
Yep,
all right,
absolutely.
Well, that's been it. As a reminder, this beard's coming off, and he's going to try to grow a beard for a whole month if if we get to 100 subscribers by the end of the month. So I'm going to have to say that every episode. But it's been a real one. We'll be later this week. We'll be hitting up some. I think is it our top 10 QB dynasty? We're
Yep.
going to revisit and kind of compare to what we had. What's changed from the beginning before the season started to now. If we've made any adjustments, if anyone's popped on or dropped off.
See what happens.
All right, y'all. Cheers.
Later.
Dad dance.